Good day, good day. Actually, we should begin our day with a very clear, let's say, decision. And that should be, I will do 1 or 2 or 3 good things today at least. And with that, if we start our day as a routine, then it will stay in our mind. And also, we should get up early as possible. How does it sound? If you have to say, I have never seen the sun coming up, it doesn't sound good. Something is missing, right? So nature is rising. The sun is rising. So you should rise. And you should be able to see the sun rise. And in order to do that, also you should go to bed early as possible, so that you can get up early. So these things interdependent. And when you get up with the nature, the birds, the sun, the plants, everything together, then you feel that you're part of the whole universe. And on top of that, as a human being, then we take some kind of clear decision. And with that, if you are a Buddhist, then you should have some Buddhist prayer every morning and meditation. But if you are not a Buddhist, I really don't know exactly how can I say anybody who is not a Buddhist, because they are Buddha in their essence. They have the Buddha nature. They have the primordial wisdom as their essence. It's very difficult to say somebody is not Buddhist. But people say that I'm not Buddhist, I'm Buddhist. So I'm following their words and their perception. So if you're one of those who say I'm not Buddhist, fine. Then whatever you are, whatever God or whatever things that you worship them. You should worship them with a very open, clear mind, and should have devotion and compassion combined in there. It should not be just compassion. It should not be just devotion. It should be combination of both of them. Then you are in the kind of balanced, let's say, practice. If your compassion is without devotion, then there is danger that you might become very proud and you will look down at everybody. To have compassion is wonderful, but you put yourself above everyone and you look down at everyone is not that good. So therefore compassion should be there, but without ego. And then if you have devotion without compassion, then you put yourself so low and you become sort of at the mercy of someone and something. You yourself is a complete and wholesome entity, and you should know that. You can do so many things that probably and perhaps you're supposed to think that you cannot do. Actually you can. You're capable. It's in you. It's part and parcel of you. So that way the devotion should be there, but devotion should not be without compassion. Only devotion with no compassion, there is danger for it to become some sort of dependent, and you become dependent, and you become inferior, and you feel sort of at the mercy. That is not correct. So when your compassion and devotion is balanced, then you don't feel that way. You feel compassion at everybody. The other to whom you have the compassion doesn't have to be necessarily sick and poor and all of that. They can be rich and healthy and educated. You can still have compassion to them. Of course, you have compassion to the poor. You have compassion to the disadvantaged. That is there. But then it will become broader. And also devotion. The devotion to the God. If you are not Buddhist. If you are Buddhist, devotion to the... Also we call Buddha sometimes God. You know, in Tibetan we say Hla Shakcha Thupa. That means Hla means God. But most of the time we don't use the word God for Buddha. We use the Buddha, the enlightened one. So that way your devotion become much more healthier. And you have devotion to the Buddha. Why? Because you have the Buddha essence, primordial wisdom as your essence. And you can become Buddha. And he, the Prince Darth, became Buddha 2,500 years before you become the Buddha. You're right now, perhaps not yet Buddha, but you can become Buddha. So he already became Buddha, therefore we have devotion to him. He became Buddha for us, not for himself. Because if you wanted to become Buddha for yourself, it will never happen. You cannot have a selfish Buddha. You can have a Buddha who is limited. So this way, the devotion and compassion should be balanced. And with that, then you should carry on your day-to-day activity, whatever it is. And in that activity, that devotion, that compassion, and that kind of principle that you have taken at the beginning of the day, so it should be the kind of central sort of mindfulness and awareness source. And with that, then you continue your day. And this way, then each and every one of your activity, without becoming so, let's say, narrow-minded and so uptight, comfortably, happily, then you can live your life with a sort of principle. And that is wonderful feeling, as well as that is wonderful in its really outcome. You have a meaningful life. Many people ask me, what is the meaning of life? I say, meaning of life is to be free. Free from what? Of course, free from suffering, but then the source of the suffering. The source of the suffering is what? Naturally, that is the self. Ego. Selfishness, greed, hatred, jealousy, all of that comes from this. So how to take care of that? You cannot beat yourself. You cannot beat your ego. You cannot. But you transform your ego into devotion. You transform your ego into compassion. Then your ego becomes positive. It's not negative. It becomes positive. Transformation. So with that you should carry on your day-to-day activity. And then of course, sometimes you will feel wonderful because some of the things that you wanted to achieve in your life, what you have been dreaming, become true. So you become very happy, but you don't get too excited about it, because it's all impermanent. You know, everyone and everything in this world one day will change. And each and every one of us who are listening and talking, we will not be here 50, 60 years from now. That's not very far. That is actually much, much younger than this tree. This tree must be at least 50, 60 years. And in that much time, none of us who are talking and listening will be here. Of course, newborn babies of today will be still here, but they are not listening. So this way, when good things happen, don't get too excited. Be happy, but don't be out of control. The same thing when something not so nice happened to you. You know, there's times that sometimes bad things happen to all of us. Bad things by the definition that we don't like those things. And they come to us. We encounter them. It happens to us. When that happens, then don't become too overwhelmed by them. You take them as face value of what it is. Don't make them more than what it is. All the humanity, all the sentient beings, nobody likes to suffer. But then you know what is happening in this world right now. What is happening in this grass right now. In this forest, there will be animals eating other animals. And all kind of things happening. And what happens to us in this life, the bad things are not as bad as those things that are happening right now, just in this tree right now, to some sentient beings. So that way you don't lose perspective. You don't magnify good things, you don't magnify bad things, but you take them at face value and know that they are not permanent. They are impermanent. I would even say they are illusion, but most of you might not understand what I mean by that. So that way I will not go too much into that. And those of you who understand that, then I don't have to tell you. And anyway, you know nothing is permanent. Everything is impermanent. That you know. And that should be remembered at all times. Of course, every person learns through his or her life. But I give you a very simple example. Nature is a very good teacher for us. We should have very strong principle, but we should be flexible. Otherwise, we will have lots of problems in life. I give you an example. This is flexible. It can bend, but after that, it will stand up and nothing happened to it. So it's flexible, but it also have its own principle and it upholds it. But then another time you can have lots of principle, lots of things in your head, but then you're not flexible. Then what happens is like this. And it's very strong, but once it is broken, it ends up down there. So this way, we should be flexible, but with very strong principle. And we should not be stiff and selfish and uptight, then it makes our life difficult. It makes everybody's life difficult. But if we have no principle, then we will be like a driftwood. Every situation will affect us. But just like the flexibility of young branch, it is flexible and it also can stand up with its own principle. I think this is very simple but very important in life. I see so many people unhappy, and sometimes even very big things such as a war, famine, all these things caused by such a small thing. But when there is this flexibility, then this will not happen. Everything's okay. But you have your own principle. And nothing will affect your principle. Nothing should affect your principle. You don't have to be afraid that your principle is being affected, because you are the principle. You have the principle in you. Although it sounds a little strange, but many times, many of us are not very clear about what do we want. But we go on doing things, and that way we get confused. We make others confused. Therefore, if it is possible, then for us to be very clear what we really want. And then, in order to do that, you might have to see what do you have and what do you need and what you don't have and what you don't need. So if these things become clear, then life becomes much more productive. And also you will find so much time and so much energy for yourself and also for others, because you know very clearly what you want, and also you know very clearly what you don't want, and you know very clearly what you have and what you don't have, and what you need and what you don't need. So everything becomes simpler and more positive. Everything becomes more clear and more positive. And this way, then we can somehow, as a Buddhist, practice the Dharma much more efficiently. If you are not, whatever you are doing, you can do them much more efficiently. And you will have a good life. You will have a wonderful life. And one thing I can tell you, and I can actually guarantee you, everything is impermanent. And even you are in the worst situation, worst scenario, if you give time, it will change. That I can guarantee you. So it is matter of being a victim or being the master of the situation. It is in your hand. Now, beside this, as a practitioner, meditator or devotee or whatever, then you should continue your day-to-day practice. And sometimes quality is not very good because you had a difficult day or stressful day, you might say, but you should not discontinue your routine. Quality might not be good, but you should just do it and accept the particular kind of situation. What I mean is, quality of practice might not be that good. Then those days when everything is favorable, then your practice quality will be very good. So there, you should be able to appreciate it and continue your practice. So this way, your progress in every situation, in good situation, bad situation, positive environment, negative environment, everything will continue and continue towards progress. And for example, with environment, today there's so much problem with environment. That is not just by the nature, but by all of us who really get carried away by using too much of nature resources and not giving enough time for the environment to regenerate itself, and excessive exploitation unnecessarily. So this way, so many things are happening. And I, because all of you asking me to share my thoughts, request to you, and also tell myself that we should spend some time here and there to assess our needs and our wants. And there's a big difference between what we want and what we need. It can make a big difference if we know that difference clearly and comfortably. And last but not the least, I want to tell you, even you are a very devoted and very dedicated person, even for doing good things, be diligent, but don't be desperate. If you do anything, even wonderful things with desperation, it will somehow become an obstacle. And something will go wrong. Because the nature of this greed, the desperation, so great things will never be achieved out of desperation, with ease and with confidence. Then it will happen. Have a very good life and make that good life meaningful life. Sometimes we think our life have to be miserable in order to make it meaningful. It's not true. Sometimes we need sacrifice. We need renunciation, of course. But we can be very comfortable. That renunciation, that sacrifice, make our life very comfortable and good. So have a good life, fellas. Good life. All my brothers and sisters in the Dharma and also in the humanity.